the forgotten ritual. It all started as a dare. Maya, Ethan, and Liam were always looking for their next adrenaline rush, spending weekends exploring abandoned places that reeked of history and neglect. But the old chapel on Blackthorn Hill wasn't just any forgotten building. The townsfolk spoke of it in hushed tones, claiming it was cursed. Stories swirled about a ritual gone wrong decades ago, and whispers of a shadow that still lingered within its crumbling walls. It was precisely the kind of place that would tempt them. The trio arrived at midnight, armed with flashlights and an old camcorder. The chapel loomed before them, its once pristine spire now jagged and broken, like a skeletal hand reaching toward the sky. Vines had claimed most of the structure, and the wooden doors were warped and swollen from years of rain and neglect. But they opened with an unsettling ease, creaking loudly as if protesting their intrusion. Inside, the air was damp and carried an earthy stench. Their footsteps echoed unnaturally, as though the chapel were larger on the inside than it appeared from the outside. Ethan, the self-proclaimed skeptic, led the way, trying to mask his unease with bravado. "See? Just a bunch of old stone and wood. Nothing to be scared of," he said, though his voice wavered slightly. Maya's flashlight beams swept over the walls, revealing faded murals. The figures depicted weren't saints but grotesque, distorted faces with hollow eyes and twisted limbs. "These don't look like normal church paintings," she whispered, her unease growing. In the center of the chapel stood an altar, carved from dark stone and stained with what looked suspiciously like dried blood. Surrounding it was a circle of symbols etched into the floor. Liam, usually the quiet one, pointed at the symbols. They're not just random. They're part of some kind of ritual." Maya noticed an ancient-looking book lying atop the altar. Its leather cover was cracked and blackened as if scorched, and the pages inside were brittle with age. Against her better judgment, she opened it. The text was in a strange, spidery script that none of them recognized, but one page seemed to resonate with her. The words swam on the page, aligning themselves into something she could read. Without realizing it, she began to speak the words aloud. The final syllable left her lips, and the temperature in the room plummeted. A deep, resonant hum filled the air, vibrating through their bones. The symbols on the floor began to glow a sickly green, pulsing in rhythm with the hum. The chapel door slammed shut with a deafening bang, and their flashlights flickered, casting erratic shadows on the walls. "Maya, what the hell did you do?" Ethan shouted, his bravado replaced by panic. Before she could respond, a low, guttural sound came from the darkness. It wasn't quite a growl, nor was it a voice, but something in between. The shadows on the walls began to shift, detaching themselves and pooling together in the center of the room. Slowly, they formed a shape, a towering figure with elongated limbs and a face that was more void than flesh. Liam stumbled backward, his breath coming in ragged gasps. "We need to leave. Now." They ran to the door, but it wouldn't budge. No matter how hard Ethan and Liam pushed or pulled, it remained sealed. The figure moved closer, its presence suffocating. The whispers began then, soft at first but growing louder. They didn't come from the figure but from everywhere at once, surrounding them. "You called us," the voices hissed in unison. "Now you must stay." The shadows slithered toward Liam, wrapping around his legs like living smoke. He screamed as they dragged him toward the altar. Maya and Ethan tried to pull him back, but the shadows were too strong. Liam's screams cut off abruptly as he was pulled into the darkness, disappearing entirely. "Liam!" Maya shrieked, tears streaming down her face. The whispers grew louder, mocking her cries. Ethan grabbed Maya's hand, dragging her toward the opposite end of the chapel where a small side door was barely visible in the dim light. Come on, there has to be another way out. The side door led to a spiral staircase that descended into an underground chamber. The air grew colder with every step, and the walls were slick with something that felt like oil. The whispers followed them, growing more insistent. When they reached the bottom, they found themselves in a cavernous room filled with more of the glowing symbols. At the center was a pit, its depths obscured by an unnatural blackness that seemed to writhe like a living thing. Before they could react, the figure reappeared, rising from the pit as if it were part of the darkness itself. Ethan pushed Maya behind him, clutching a broken piece of wood he had grabbed from the stairs. "Stay back," he yelled, though his voice trembled with fear. The figure tilted its head, as though amused. It extended a long, clawed hand toward Ethan, who swung his makeshift weapon wildly. The wood passed through the figure harmlessly, and Ethan was lifted off the ground. Maya watched in horror as the shadows consumed him, his body disintegrating into wisps of smoke. Maya was alone now. The whispers grew deafening, and the figure loomed over her. She stumbled backward, tripping over the edge of the pit. As she teetered on the brink, the whispers formed a single, chilling word: "Stay." With a final, piercing scream, Maya fell into the darkness. The pit closed, the glowing symbols faded, and the chapel fell silent once more. By morning, the chapel's doors were ajar again, as if inviting the next unwitting souls inside. And those who passed by swore they could hear faint whispers, calling their names.